Welcome to Task Oscar 5023. And tonight we're going to participate in planning a CAP UAS flight. So this is the only task that we'll be doing tonight. And as I said, this does seem to be one of those ones that seem out of place for the technician stream. But for those not completing the mission pilot stream, it's important for you to understand the process of planning a mission in order for you to, again, be that jack of all trades that you need to be. Ironically, those who want to be mission pilots but are not here tonight will find doing the assignment of 5020 much more difficult because we're going to be going into a lot of stuff tonight. So, as Rick Ocasek said, fit the cars, let's go. So an sUAS team has been requested to do a sweep of a clearing area surrounded by a very dense forest. A little girl has dropped her teddy bear and is distraught. She is at incident command being consoled by her parents. We need eyes in the sky to find it. It is now 23:30 hours Zulu, and we are expected at ICS for our flight at 1500 hours Zulu tomorrow morning. We have been assigned mission 21-Charlie-3478. I am the mission pilot. You are my technician team. We're going to go through the steps of planning an sUAS flight. Okay, so since we must be in uniform at all times during a mission, normally you would have been told to wear your uniforms tonight. So I'm going to close my eyes and pretend that everyone is in a uniform for this mission. All right. So that's normally where we would have gone. So what do you think step one is? Anybody got a guess?
In regards to what?
In regards to our planning. I'm being coy and being general for a reason because it brings everything into focus where I'm going to go with this.
Loaded into Wimmers.
Actually, even before that.
Equipment check.
Before that.
Well, get a crew.
Before that.
Eat
You
High-vis
something.
vest.
You guys are giving all awesome answers, and that was my whole point. Oh, because, oh shoot. One second, please.
Sounds like Houston, we got a problem.
Was the correct answer Avengers Assemble?
Oh.
The correct answer is Technicians Assemble.
Sorry. Again. There we go. All right. So all of your answers were absolutely wonderful, and they are actually all perfect. Because when you take a look at what step one is, you're actually going to see all of your answers there. Click for the answer, and it is step one. We hand over our handy dandy checklists. And in our checklist, we have a pre-mission checklist. So if we're going to do everything by the book, we're going to use our checklists so that we don't overlook anything. This checklist is everything we want to make sure we do or have before we leave the house. The last thing we want to do is to be caught short. I'm going to show you the order I use, okay? That means that you will become comfortable in doing this in the order that you determine. So keep that in mind as we continue. So we do the system pre-flight. Make sure our firmware and our ground control station is up to date. If we have to cache any maps, we do that. We've made sure that our SD cards are clear We make sure that all of our batteries are charged. Remember, charging is not charged. Don't check it off until it's actually done. We then go to our controller, sensor, and ground control station, making sure that they are charged as well. Obviously, we can plug in all of these things to make sure they're charged at the same time. Okay, so everything's charged. We're ready to start packing to go. Before we go through the checklist, let's take a look at my gear to give you an example of what you're going to be looking at. So, the gear, this is my sUAV case. Let's open it up. So, as you can see, we have the sUAS. I know I did a check before I put it away the last time, but I always want to give it a once over again to make sure. I'm looking for loose screws, cracks, broken or disconnected wires, spinning the prop motors to make sure that they move. And I'll be doing this at least one more time before the sUAS goes into the air, maybe even twice more. Okay, the remote control, a lanyard for securing it around my neck, and a connector cable. I've already checked it when I was charging, so we're okay to go. So now we have the batteries labeled. Notice how they're all batteries. Take a good look at these. You'll notice that the labels are all facing away from me. That's how I know that they currently need to be charged. It also helps with battery bingo, which we're going to talk about a bit later. So once a battery is charged, I put it in the case with the label facing me. That way, I'll know that it's fully charged. Now, I know I said that these were charged, but I wanted to show you a little bit about that placement for me. It's just a way for me to see at a glance which batteries are used, which ones are still charged when we're out in the field. I've got 2 sets of propellers in the bag. Why do I want 2 sets?
In case some of them are damaged.
In case one of them gets damaged in the flight, or I get there and something has occurred and they're damaged. At least I have backups. My prop guards, in case I want to use them. There's my tablet that I use for my ground control station. I also have a couple of other things in here. Camera lens, cleaning cloth, and lens filters that I use for various photographic effects. We don't need them for our purposes tonight, and we don't need them for this mission, but I thought I would just show you. And my light kit for night flying that I can attach and detach as necessary. Again, remember, I fly in Canada, therefore I can fly at night. We cannot fly at night in the United States. Now, this is one of my personal drone kits. However, for our purposes this evening, we're going to make believe that this is a Michigan Wings owned kit and it's in my possession. That way we don't have to file a hold harmless or any of that other paperwork that we would see. Okay. Note that if you are using your own sUAS on a mission, this form must be filled out and filed in WMRS. It's a hold harmless that allows you to use your own personal sUAS on a mission. It has to be approved by the wing commander in accordance with the regs. And in Michigan, and I can't say for all other wings, in Michigan, the wing commander has also given that approval to the wing DOU. So in that case, that would be Colonel Bomer.
Question, is that approval a one-time or does it have to be done on a mission by mission basis?
I have gotten a blanket, and that's a good idea to get one and just say, sir, can I use mine on my sUAS on missions? And then what I got him to do was sign a blank form for me so that I can then just fill it in and upload it into Wimmers every time I use it. But a separate form has to be filed for every sortie. Okay, so because the thing is that you're saying that on this day, so you can't have this, you know, you could have a blanket 1 year, but this way at least you're saying on this day I used my personal drone and I have permission to use it.
Hey, Captain Borek.
Hello.
Hey, yes, sir. I signed in 2 minutes late. I'm catching the crux of the conversations about using your personal drone and the procedures to go through it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you haven't missed much. All we've gone through right now is using. We're starting with, and I'll go back here for you. We're starting with the pre-mission checklist is what we're going through, and we've just done our system pre-flight, and now we're doing our equipment pack. So we're starting with our gear. I just went through my suitcase here and went through all the various elements that I have in here. Okay. And then finally, we have a spare erasable marker. Why erasable? Because as I said, I carry all of my forms in a plastic sleeve. And with that sleeve, I can write on that, snap my picture or scan it as need. And then when I'm done, I wipe it off, save the trees. So what else do we need? Well, we also have other things that we need to bring with us as well. The first two things I want you to notice are the checklist booklet and my forms and logbook, which I take out of my Bible binder and put in here just to make it easier to access. These are mandatory. You must do a pre-flight checklist on every sortie and a pre-takeoff checklist on every flight. I will be stressing that several times over the next 3 to 4 weeks. I also have my sunshade protector for my tablet, my takeoff landing pad, which when unfolded, in this case, expands to a 3-foot diameter and is held down with 3 pegs. Kind of looks like this. There's no real reason for the different colors. I've always thought that it depended on the contrasting ground that you're using. So if you're on grass, use the yellow. If you're in sand, use the blue. And somebody knows something different, please tell me, because nobody's ever told me different. But if you do know something, let me know. The following are things that are good to have, but they're not mandatory. I still suggest getting into the habit of packing them. A pair of yellow anti-glare sunglasses. Why yellow? Why the light yellows? Because you can still see with them. Not blue blockers. But if you're using brown or black or gray, it's going to differentiate. It's going to make differentiation of the colors on your GCS that much harder to do.
Are those shooting glasses?
Pardon?
Are those like shooting glasses? People that shoot?
They certainly look like them. No, ironically enough, these are dollar store. I found them in the dollar store. You'll sometimes see them advertised as nighttime driving glasses.
Okay.
But those are the ones that I recommend. These ones were they just happened to be perfect for me because they still had the yellow, they were still polarized, they still had anti-glare. But they're not as strong as those amber or those brown amber or those gray, the gray ones.
Sir, they sort of remind me of those things the military issued us that have been more industrial.
Yeah,
strength.
yeah, they look like safety glasses, but like I said,
Right.
in this case, These are just dollar store, but again, you can get these anti-glare sunglasses pretty much anywhere. Okay. Any hardware store sells them. That, as I said, you'll see them as the seen on TV, those nighttime driving glasses. Okay. An external battery for my phone or my tablet in case of an emergency recharge with a cable. And finally, a USB splitter for use with my laptop. For our purposes tonight, we're not going to be bringing the laptop, but if we did, we would always make sure that this was packed and ready to go with us. And of course, my sUAS Bible that I've shown everyone before. All of that equipment is stored in a small travel bag. It doesn't have to be expensive. Again, I picked this one up for $4 at a dollar store. I also carry another set of propellers in here, as well as my spare tello props. I even sometimes throw my tello in there just for fun if I want to fly it around when I'm off. So we make sure that our uniform is ready to be worn tomorrow. We make sure that we have our membership card and our 101 card with us. These are the most important items you need with you. They don't seem to, but without them, according to Regulation 60-3, you can't be assigned any duties on any cap operations. All right. So you want to have them with you at all times. You'll notice this nice little thing. I'm just repurposing one of those old insurance. You know, go to any insurance agent. They've got a ton of these. They'll be more than happy to give you 2 or 3 to put your stuff in. You want your 24-hour bag if you have one. And of course, you cannot fly without a safety vest. Remember our ORM form? If you're not wearing a safety vest, it's a no-go. Okay, so everything's charged. We're ready to start packing to go. What kind of emergency equipment might we want to think about? We're here. What kind of emergency equipment might we be thinking about?
First aid kit.
First aid kit, absolutely. Anything else?
Water.
Water,
Food,
food,
Signaling devices.
signaling devices,
flashlight.
flashlight, any of that information, any of that stuff. Now, those of you who are part of ground teams, you know what I'm talking about. My 24-hour bag, all of that's in there. But if you don't, you want to put your mind to some of this stuff to make sure that you've got it, right? Okay, so we've got our emergency equipment packed. We can check that off. If we had our own radios, we would make sure that we have them packed. For our purposes, we know that we're going to be issued radios at incident command, so we can check that off. So now comes the nitty-gritty planning. We need to get our flight plan, and this is more than one thing on a to-do list. Before we can check this off, we're going to continue on to the next session of our checklist, and you're going to understand why I'm doing that. The first thing we might want to do is check the weather. Notice how all of this kind of forms part of that, what we call the flight plan. We don't have to formally file one because they're not manned aircraft, but we do still have these flight plan situations that we want to check. Okay. There are several ways to do this: internet, newspaper, phone apps. I have a personal favorite called UAV Forecast. It has both a web interface as well as a downloadable app for your phone in both Android and iOS. And it's free. For a yearly subscription, you can buy all the bells and whistles it has, but the free version suits our purposes extremely well. This is included on all Michigan wing tablets that come with the Skydios. At least they did before we realized that we had the wrong tablets, but we downloaded this onto all of them. And yes, after talking with them and with help from we found the solution to the problem we thought we may have had with those tablets. And then we realized, no, that wasn't the solution. So if the only sUAS you will be using is a Michigan-owned one, you will already have access to this. Otherwise, you may want to take a look at going to the website here and downloading it, or you can actually download it off of your Google Play and your Apple Store. Here's an example of the web interface. Okay, so you can put in your maximum wind, your temperatures you put in all your stats, and if this is green across the board, you're good to fly. That's what I love about this thing. You just put in the parameters, it tells you whether you're good to fly or not. If it comes up red, you're not good to fly. If you don't, it's going to tell you how many sats can be locked. You're going to say, I need a minimum of 10 sats. Well, if you don't have 10 sats, it's going to say that you're not good to fly. If your miles per hour is 29 miles per hour, if you've set it for 25 or 20, which we have, I believe that's what we have here for our 24. So anything higher than 24 miles an hour, it's going to show up red and it's going to tell you you can't fly. Okay, so, and again, this is not official cap. This is to give you as a pilot more information to know whether you have a potential fly or no-go situation. Here's a look at the telephone, at the tablet interface and the phone interface, okay? The default dashboard gives you a look at all that information you'll need for your weather and your ORM. I know we've talked about the KP index a little bit, and we're going to talk a lot more about it in I believe Thursday night. But you'll understand what this number means when we go through it. For now, you just need to know that 2 is actually, it's not bad. It actually is good. Clicking on the map area will show you your local airspace. It doesn't give you any NOTAMs. Anybody remember what NOTAM stands for?
Notice to airmen.
Notice to airmen. And it doesn't give you your TFRs. Anybody remember what that stands for? My non-pilots.
Temporary flight restrictions.
There we go. Not fair if we give them all the answers, guys.
Hey, sir.
What we need to go, so
Sure.
for that, we need to go onto another app, and that one's also on the supply. Anybody remember what that was?
Before you fly,
Before you fly, exactly. So aloft, before you fly, it used to be called Kitty Hawk. Now you'll see it here. It's newly branded. And again, it's another free app. There's no web interface, but the app is available for both iOS and Android, and it gives you the opportunity to see where you're headed. The key features are a clear status indicator that informs you whether it's safe to fly or not. If it's green, you're safe. If it's yellow, that means you're going to have to look into something a bit more. If it's red, you can't fly. Okay, so for example, flying in the special flight rules area around Washington, D.C., you're going to see that that's prohibited. No drones are allowed in the Washington, D.C. area. Okay, so that's the type of thing that you're going to get. So let's see what happens here. So when we open it up, it automatically reads your GPS location and gives you your closest scenario. So in this scenario, you will see that there are no permissions required, no NOTAMs, no TFRs. We're all good. If you want to change location, you just move the map, tap on the screen, and the app will then look at the new target and adjust accordingly. So we see in this picture what we are in. that we are in an area that no drone activity is allowed. And we scroll down and we see what the problem is. We'll see that the main reason is when we click on more to get the finer details. Bottom line, if we get a red banner, we don't fly, period. If it's yellow, we may have to file a lang.
Question.
So go ahead.
As a pilot, one of the things that it's important to do is when you get your briefing, get it from a source that it's recorded. So there's a record that you were briefed. So if something comes up, you've got a record that you were briefed. If you use before you fly or something, does that create any record?
Yes, it does, because it's all you have to do is just click it and take a picture of your screen. And that would then go in your gallery.
Hey, sir, this is a spin-off of what he was asking, like, like I would use aviation airport data, like I got an app that gives me the current obs and such from the local airports. Like I have 3 of them in there so I can triangulate. And I write down the METAR exactly as is. I mean, if I wrote it down in my journal,
Yep.
and then put it in my logs, is that the same?
Same thing. Yep. And again, we're not even at the crew briefing yet, or at the briefing, which you bring up a good point, both of you. And we're going to get to that when we get to the briefing. You're going to see how that might play out. But again, this is just for us, as the pilot. This is what I want to be doing prior to the mission, so that I am prepared to give you that briefing, right? And you as technicians right now are helping me plan this by seeing what's going on and by asking those questions. So no, absolutely in the right direction there. Okay. So we see in this picture here, we see that there is controlled airspace. So we are going to need to submit a LANC request. And we do this by tapping here and then just follow the pop-up menu. When we click here, we follow the instructions and we get our LANC. We went over this a couple of weeks ago on how to get that LANC, so that we've all done that already. So this is again just a brief summary of what we went over on that day. And as I said at that time, you'll receive your response within 30 to 45 seconds. So when we did our search for the purposes of this mission here, we did our search and there were no NOTAMs. So we're going to check that off. Airspace is clear, right? We checked to see if where we were, and in our case for this one, we are flying in Class G or Class Golf airspace. So we've kind of done what we needed to look at in order to do that quote unquote flight plan. So we can now go back to this and looked at all that, so we can now check that off. By now, you're going to realize, at least when I do my preparing, it's not important to do the checklist in any exact order. There seems to be a logical progression as you plan more and more missions. You'll see that you jump back and forth on the page. Luckily, all of these are on the same page, so you don't get too lost with them. Okay, back to our checklist. So at this point, we don't have any frequencies, but when they are assigned to us, we'll need to include them in our briefing. And the maps will give us a pretty good idea of the terrain that we're going to be experiencing. However, we know that we are going to be in a potentially forested area. So that obstacle is present in our minds. We know that when we get to the site, we will have to ensure that our return to home height is above the tree line. There didn't appear to be any obstacles on the maps, but what might be checked to confirm what these obstacles might be and what height they might be. Anybody
Sectional?
remember sorry?
Sectional?
The sectional, exactly. We're going to check that CAP grid map, aren't we? So otherwise, we're going to have to want to check it at mission base because they're going to hopefully have that. So in this case, we know that we've got a grid map. We've checked it. We're good to go. So what's next? What do you think?
Crew briefing.
Our crew briefing?
Yeah.
Let's see what's next. We need to turn our heads to potential emergencies first. Because we can't give the crew briefing until we know that, right?
Yeah.
What possible emergencies could we encounter?
Somebody getting sick.
Somebody gets sick,
Injuries.
injuries from
Fatigue or whatever.
fatigue, rabbit holes,
I am safe. What you want to use.
right? The terrain,
Battery explodes.
battery explodes.
Hey, sir. Sir,
Yes.
don't forget that rattlesnake I brought up a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, the rattlesnake, exactly. You're 3 o'clock. Awesome. So I've created a risk assessment that I always keep with me. And again, we're going to be going more into detail with that next week. Maybe I think it's in 2 weeks now. But for now, just trust me that I've done it. Okay. So back to our checklist where we left off. So based on what's left, what do you think the most logical thing of those 4 is left to do?
You didn't check off emergencies.
Oh, what do you know? It didn't. It should be. Emergencies was checked off, but when it looks like when I made the slide, it got lost. But pretend there's a check mark there. There it is.
All right.
Hey, there you go.
Arms. Do your
I would say-
arms. Oh, arms. Yeah. Do your arms.
Do the ORM. Absolutely. You'd think that that would be the next thing to do. But there's one more thing that's not on the checklist. But let's bring up our ORM spreadsheet and see what's missing. Can
Risk
anyone
assess-
spot why we can't fill in our ORM matrix yet?
We haven't completed the whole arms list.
Yep. But we can't even complete our ORM yet.
Do we have our team yet?
That's
We
part
have
of
our
it, but
team, but we have an indication of what our team might be.
I need to get a mission number and sortie and date and all that. Fill out the
Well,
top.
I gave you a mission number at the beginning, but did I give you a sortie number?
No.
Exactly.
We won't have our tasking. Yeah.
Exactly. And somebody said, you know, when I asked, what's the first thing we got to do? And somebody said, well, we got to do a sortie. This is where I do my sortie. I'm prepared. I'm getting ready to do. I've done all my other pre stuff. Now I'm actually looking at actually doing the flying. Okay. So this is where, even though it's not on our checklist, and we've tweaked our we need to tweak and turn our heads to creating this in our personal checklists, that we need to get our sortie. So let's do just that. So remember that we have to create more than one sortie in more than one location. Our travel or our relocation sortie is placed in the main mission. Our sUAS sorties will be placed in a separate mission. We then reference the name of that main sortie in the brief. For our purposes this evening, we are going to create our sUAS sortie, not our travel sortie. The concept is the same, so if you know how to do one, you know how to do the other. But the reason I'm choosing this is because you're going to see what I mean about referencing. So the first thing we're going to do is log into Eservices and go to WMRS. We do that by clicking on Menu on the left-hand side. We click on Operations. Oops, did I go? Yep, there we go. We click on Operations. And then we click on WMRS 2.0. A list of all the missions currently in WMRS will now come up. We know our mission number, so we filter out some of the other stuff and we put our mission number in the filter. That's going to bring up the one that we need. So now we click on our mission number. This is where we're going to vary. A lot of my pilots out there, you guys already know this stuff. You've already gotten, this is more for the people who have never entered WMRS before in their lives. And we ironically have a lot of people that have not done that, right? So this is where it's going to vary. For those of you who have only ever been on the aircraft side, you're going to see a totally different screen when we get to the creation of the sortie. We go into the mission, and then when we get there, we're going to click on Edit View Ground Sorties. This is important. Air sorties currently are for manned aircraft only. If we get our own sUAS sortie link in the future, we will use that. But for now, we are ground sorties. It's our hope that we get sUAS, then we won't have to be putting them in two different missions. We'll actually be able to do this. So we can put a ground sortie in for our relocation and then an sUAS sortie in for our flight. But for now, we still have to put it in as the ground sortie. We click Add Sortie button at the bottom of the page. We click the chevron to select the mission symbol. There may only be one, in which case it's easy. A thing to note, mission symbols are found in CAP Standards 72-2. The document is 9 pages long. It was recently updated in 2021. It's not a bad idea to have a copy of it with your gear. As this is a training mission, we're going to use C83. C80 is used for 5U and 91U flights only. So when it comes time for you to do these flights, the 5U, the 91U, you're going to want to use C80 on those when you're creating your sortie. A new sortie add page is created. We leave the sortie number alone. Some of you in the prior class, remember what happens if you start mucking around in there.
Sure do.
We don't touch that until and unless we have our own sortie number, and that's the only number we ever pull up on there. If you click on the chevron and it shows a number, anything you do here will change that sortie information. You don't want to do that. So be careful. You don't want to overwrite someone else's sortie. Fill in the tracking number if you are given one. If not, since we do not leave any blank spaces, you're going to put your last name and if you want some other indicator. Never leave it blank. If you belong to a wing other than Michigan, you're going to want to talk to your director of operations to see if they want something different in this field. In Michigan, we put our last name and a sub indicator if we wish. So Boar 1, Boar 2, just Boar, whatever, but it's our last name and then any other indicator if we want to use that. For other wings, talk to your director of operations to make sure you're doing it proper for your wing. You're going to want to select your sortie type. Again, we're lucky. We only have one to consider for this exercise. When more than one exists, you will choose the best one to what you are doing. Then we're going to enter the date of the sortie. You'll note that it defaults to the date you are creating the sortie. If the sortie is for a future date, you will have to change it. Don't forget that. Okay. So here we can see that I've changed the date of the sortie to when we're going out. And of course, we've taken a time machine into the past because at the time that this was done, originally these slides were done, it was back in 2021. Enter the location that you are departing from. Also the destination and estimated time of arrival. Now, this is important because this is not the relocation. So we're not looking at home here. This is departing. ICS, destination, your first, where you've been told to go. Whether you need to put GPS coordinates or the corner of John and, John Street and Main Street, or the name of a city, but you're going to be, that's what you need to assure that when you're putting in your locations, departing and destination have nothing to do with your relocation. It has to do with the sortie when you're flying the and then your relocation departing from home, your destination ICS when you're doing a relocation.
Question.
Yes.
Does that mean like when you were doing the dams, because you have a different destination for each sortie, you're going to you can't have multiple flights on the same sortie. You would have to have multiple sorties. No, and that's a darn good question. Our first destination is what we put as our sortie. And for our ETA, because then it's going to actually show when we do our debrief, we're going to show the different destinations that we went to with either GPS coordinates or other identifying locations. But what we want is our ETA to our very first destination in a multi-destination sortie for UAS purposes. Excellent question.
The departing field then is what?
ICS.
Okay.
Or if we're going directly to a location, then yeah. Like, let's say, for example, let's say we met, we're a team and we all met at a different location other than ICS. Well, that's where we're going to make is the departing location. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's not part of the travel sortie.
No, it is not. That's why this is not a relocation or travel sortie. This
Right.
is for the sUAS.
So if you rendezvoused at a certain intersection in a highway to get everybody grouped to go do the actual sortie, that would be the rendezvous point.
And the
Departing
rendezvous
point.
point would then, so for your relocation, home would be your departure, rendezvous would be your destination, right?
Yeah.
So for the sUAS sortie, where you rendezvoused would now be your departing location, and your first destination for sUAS is going to be here.
Got it. That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Most of the time, you're gonna be using parting from home, most of the time.
Well, yeah, and again, I can use as a perfect example, when I did my relocation sortie for the GLR, I went from home to the Myers in Pontiac. That's where my rendezvous was with Colonel Bomer. And then for the purpose of the mission, our departing was Myers, and our destination was the very first dam that we were looking at, and that was in Traverse City somewhere. I can't remember the exact location. And then when I went home, I went back into my into the main mission, did my relocation as departing and the destination from the Myers, and then destination being home.
Right.
Okay, so given our purposes, we all rendezvoused in Sault Ste. Marie, and so we are arriving at the location of Dead Man's Hill Overlook, just outside of Gaylord. We have not been issued a call sign, so what do we do with this area?
NA.
NA, exactly. Right. So now we're ready to update and receive our sortie number. We click on the update button. New sortie will now be given a number. That's the only number we go into. Don't go into anybody else's number. Because if we do, we overwrite, and if we overwrite, we're in trouble. You'll also notice that we have new elements that appear. We have vehicles and personnel. When we complete these, it's a little bit tricky again for sUAS purposes. We need to enter we need to enter the vehicles that we are traveling on in a mission. Okay. We at one time used to also put our sUAS in here. We don't do that anymore. So now we're just going to put, again, our car in here, or the truck, 20025, whatever we are putting in here, that's going to now be what we're going to put in there. Okay. When we get to for the purposes of our exercise, it's already been completed for us. Now, because our slides are going to show my sUAS being in there as the vehicle, I'm going to just treat this, pretend that that was my car. Makes life a lot easier for us. So, how do you enter a vehicle? If your vehicle has already been signed in, it'll be part of the Dropbox. If not, you need to sign in a new vehicle. Okay. When we click on the chevron, we get, as I said, we get to choose the vehicle. If it's the first time, we sign in a new vehicle, and you'll note that the make and model, as I said, has my FAA registration number. That procedure has recently been changed by National, and so I just haven't had time to change the slide. We do not put the airframe info in here anymore. The airframe info is now found on the 109U and in the other locations in the brief. I'll show you at that time. So here we will put the vehicle that we are using, whether it be the car, the truck, the van, the same as the travel sortie. If we have a new vehicle, once we've done all this with the pop-up on the new vehicle, it's now part of this. We've locked it in and we now add it to the sortie. It now shows up here. Now we add the personnel. If you're not signed into the mission, you need to do that first. Okay. First, so if you are signed in, then your name is going to be in the drop box. You click it and away you go. Make sure to note the driver. If the driver, because you see you've got the little notation here for the driver. If the driver is not part of the team per se, then designate them as the driver only. Then you click add. Now you're going to do the same thing for all the members of the team. You're going to put their name in, make them a passenger in the vehicle. The vehicle will automatically link up to this one. We saw that here. See that? They link up. Keep doing that until all of the passengers are in. Remember to take the driver box out. If they're not the driver, why? Because these get color coded.
Mhm.
Okay, and as I said, we just keep adding until all the passengers are entered. Once that's done, we click on update. Any questions on the initial creation of a sortie?
So the vehicle in this case is the drone?
No,
No.
that's what I said.
Oh.
That was, I used, because last year when I gave this, that's how it was.
Okay,
It's been changed. The vehicle is now the vehicle that is being used to travel from where you are to the first location where we're going to fly the drone.
but we list the make, the model, and the license of the drone.
No,
Oh, okay. That's
no,
a question.
yeah, that's what I unfortunately, it's still there. I just haven't had a chance to swap out the slides.
Okay, so that'd be like a cab van.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. And I'm going to show you in the brief when we get to that, where you're going to put that information. Okay, so now, and as I said, this is a personal choice. You can either fill in the sortie brief right now, or you can continue to the ORM. I like going back to the ORM because I still have this screen up. I have the ORM as, you know, as another document. I can go to it, fill it in, and then get that done. Either way, the briefing page remains the same. It's all in your comfortability. So for our purposes, let's go back to the ORM. Now, we've completed the ORM. We've put the mission number. We've got the sortie number. We've got the date. We've got our sUAS pilot in command. All right. We don't have an air operations branch director for this sortie. We only have an incident commander. We were short-staffed. We've completed all of the requirements and we've come up with a score of 18. And as I said, when we first did this, this takes all of 5 to 10 minutes to complete. So now we've completed our ORM. We've added it. Okay, so we've added everything here and we are now back in our sortie. We've completed our ORM. And what are we going to do here? We've saved the ORM as a PDF and we're now ready to upload it to our sortie. Okay, so we've gone over how to upload a sortie file, so we're not going to go over it here, but we are now going to complete the WIMMERS briefing by clicking Brief Sortie, because again, we know how to upload our sortie files, right? Everybody just, oh yes.
Right.
Yes. All right, so now we're going to brief our sortie. And notice how I've referenced the main mission here. So reference mission 22-T-1234, search clearing area for missing teddy bear using sUAS FAA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's where we're going to put some of that stuff in that primary assignment, so that's where we're going to say the mission was 22-T-1234, but we're flying our sUAS under this mission here. Make sense? Okay. Then we're going to put in, at this point, we don't know what grid numbers we're looking at. If we knew, we would put them in. And again, how do we put that in? We have the three-letter identifier of the sectional. Then we have the grid number, and then we have the quadrant, and then the sub-quadrant if we need to go that far as well, right? We're then going to put in our channel plan. At this point, we don't know what it is, or we don't have one, so we're just going to put NA. Our base call sign is unknown at this point. Again, keeping in mind that we don't leave blank spaces, right? Our base phone number, we don't know. Restricted areas, there's none. Our search aircraft grid is unknown. Our call sign is not applicable. Our sighting actions, what's our sighting actions? Not applicable at this point. There are no other agencies. Our current is sunny. Our current weather is sunny and clear, and we're expected to be sunny and clear for the next 24 hours. We're still not done though. We got a couple more to go. Not much, but we do. So now we're going to put other. This is also another area that we could put that information about what sUAS we're flying or referencing. I prefer to put it in that other main panel. So for other here, we're going to put nothing. Our briefing officer is automatically put in by the system. So when we've completed, we can now click the update button. It's important to note that nothing will change on the screen. We have to trust Wimmers. Yeah, I know. So when we click update, nothing's going to change on the screen. So trust that it's now been updated. So then we go back to sortie main. And there we go. So if you received information that needs to be updated, you can always go back to brief sortie to change it, and then click update to confirm the change. So our sortie is complete. We've entered the personnel and we've completed the initial brief. So now we're good to go. We're ready for the next step. Lucky for us, we know that no civilians need to be briefed, so we can now check that one off as well. That leaves us with, remember these guys? Now is when we determine what order we're going to use these. In my case, it's pretty easy. I purchased and used all my batteries in the same order every single time. But what if I bought battery 2 used from a trusted source, but I know that it has about 20 flights more than any of my other current batteries? I might place this one in the far right to use it only as the last resort until they can catch up. They may be labeled in the order I purchased them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a fresher battery than the higher numbered battery. This will allow my other batteries to catch up, as I just said, and this is one of the reasons why we log battery time and usage. This is what we call battery bingo. It's important for the pilot to tell the technicians which order to use the batteries. If you've already placed them in a usage order, left to right or right to left, you only need to tell the tech that, and it becomes easy peasy. Pull the battery. When we're done, flip the battery around so that it's facing away from us, so we know which battery we want to use, and then we just go down the line. Sometimes I may only use 3 batteries. So I'm going to put these 2 batteries over to the left for the next time I use them. because I know that those are the next 2 batteries in line. And I just rotate them around. Any questions on battery bingo? All right. So now we've determined what order the batteries are used, so we can check off our battery plan. So now we've determined what order the batteries will be used.
Now, do you want to make sure that you tell the tech that too, so they mark it on their paper, right?
And that's going to come in the flight briefing, exactly. Because again, once we've determined battery bingo, now we have to, as the pilot, we have to make sure that everybody knows what we're thinking, right? Because again, if you're like me, your crystal ball broke about 3 weeks ago. It's useless. Never, yeah, and you know, my mind reading skills have never been the greatest. So unfortunately, we have to rely on that lovely thing called communication now. So now I'm almost ready to go. I still need a flight release. There are currently 7 sUAS flight release officers in Michigan Wing. Don't worry about writing this down right now. When you become an sUAS mission pilot, Colonel Bomer will send you a welcome email with the names of the flight release officers and the information that you need. Okay. So we now need a flight release. Flight releases can be requested up to 24 hours just before a sortie. Just remember that the closer you are to the takeoff time, the more accurate you may be with your information, especially weather, and especially here in the UP. So, what does a flight release sound like for sUAS purposes? Let's make the call and find out, shall we?
Good evening, Captain Bjorn. How may I help you?
Hello, Lieutenant Kursky. I am looking for a flight release.
Oh, okay. You're gonna bear with me for a moment. I will. Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
I am.
Gonna be. All right. Do you have a mission number?
I do. 22-Tango-123-4.
You have a sortie number.
Golf-0068.
Okay. Who is the pilot?
I am the pilot.
Okay. And your cap ID is?
649-322.
Are you qualified and current to fly this make and model of drone?
I am.
Is there a technician on the team?
I have a technician. It's Captain Crunch.
And his CAP ID is?
123-456.
Okay. What is your ORM score for this sortie?
My ORM score is 18.
Do you have a plan for mitigating identified risks?
I do. I have it with me. I have an actual full ORM with me.
Okay. Are there any maintenance discrepancies for this aircraft?
No, there are not.
Has the pilot read all required critical items and numbers?
I have. When I entered, there were none to be read.
Are you authorized to fly the planned route?
I am.
Does the flight involve moving on private property?
No, it does not. I have, everything is uploaded and ready to lock and load.
Okay, okay, are you, I am safe. Illnesses,
I am in good health.
any medication,
None that will affect the flight.
are you in undue stress?
Not anything more than usual. I'm pretty good there.
Have you had any alcohol, consumed any alcohol within the last 8 hours?
No, I have not.
Are you and your team well rested?
Yes, we are, ma'am.
Are you and your team emotionally stable?
That remains to be seen by some people. I like to consider myself stable.
Think that is everything. All right, then. Checked all my boxes, and I will take you on flight, please. Happy love, off, and when you are back on the ground, shoot me a text message so I can hold out my end.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Do you need anything else?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, get outside the road then.
All right,
I'll be fine.
thank you. I'll send you a text when I'm done.
All right, bye.
Bye now.
I didn't hear as for weather conditions.
That's part of my ORM.
Oh, okay.
So the flight release officer is not going to ask you for your flight condition, your weather conditions, because that's going to be part of your ORM, right? And so, and again, as we stated, there are certain ORM scores in the weather area that's going to be automatically create a no-go situation. So you're not going to be able to call for a flight release unless you've eliminated all those no-goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, do we get how do we get the information that the flight officer is asking? It's like a checklist of us, so how do we get that information?
When you become a mission pilot, you will be given that checklist. It's the same one that we use that in Michigan Wing currently, and I will make sure that that gets given to everybody, and I'm sure Colonel Bulmer will want to do that as well. It gives you an idea of what you're going to be asked.
Right.
A question, in a real mission, on the manned aircraft, air ops can do the flight release. In sUAS, in a real mission, do you have to go to one of these flight release officers, or is there somebody at the incident command that can do the flight release?
Hopefully one of us is in incident command. You may, but technically right now, we showed this when we did the GLR. Unfortunately, manned flight release officers don't know the requirements for an sUAS in many cases. And it's one of the reasons why we need to really grow the program so that there are people on both sides that, then FRO officers could be, or FROs could be both manned and unmanned. But for right now, because of the nature of the beast, it was funny. We had to get a flight release from somebody who said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know if I should be letting you go, but it sounds good. So, okay. Yeah. But that's why we do exercises, right? We recognize. So with that, I have then put my recommendation, at least in Great Lakes region, and Colonel Bulmer has put that recommendation at Wing, that these are the 7 people that do flight releases for sUAS. And yeah, as I said, that's information, all the phone numbers and everything will be given to everybody. So any other questions on that flight release? Pretty harmless. I mean, it's not too grave. the basic thing is that because we do a lot of self-assessment when we're flight released, it's already part of the ORM. It's actually one of the reasons why right now they're talking about the possibility of not even requiring a release for an sUAS, and that it would just be a go no go from incident command. So your question earlier, Captain Bruce, about whether we can get it from anybody. Hopefully in the future, we don't need to do that whole flight release thing because the ORM is pretty self-explanatory. And the real questions that we need to ask are you going on private property? And if you are, do you have permission to do so? Because we don't want to put ourselves at risk as a corporation, obviously. And then the other thing is, as in any other circumstance, we've already done in reality, the I am safe as part of the ORM score. So one of the things that National is looking at is eliminating the need for flight release officers. And right now, I don't know which way that's going to go. I'll be honest. They are talking about that possibility, and at the same time, they're talking about keeping it on with a standardized checklist that goes across the entire country. So, okay. So, for our purposes, we want to do an orthomosaic. So there are several apps that can be used for automated flight. We've talked about a couple of them: Drone Deploy, Pix4D, Skyward. As a pilot, we may decide to use one of these apps. And in that case, we need to make sure that we have everything we need downloaded to our GCS tablet. So here is what would happen in Drone Deploy, for example. The first thing you do is create a project. Once in the project, you create a search area. For reference, we're going to be here. Okay. You can see that although I stated that we are in Class Golf airspace, there is an advisory. That's because there's a private airport nearby. When we click for more information, we find that there's no LANCs required, and we do need to pay attention to what it says. That airports are nearby. The UAS may be operated in a manner that does not interfere with operations and traffic patterns at any airport, heliport, or seaplane base. The remote pilot in command must give way to manned aircraft and check local airport traffic patterns. Okay. The proposed UAS operation occurs in uncontrolled space. No authorization is required. However, the operator must comply with Part 107 rules. So in other words, even though we are in Class Golf airspace here, if you don't have a 107 under these circumstances, you aren't allowed to fly in this area. A recreational pilot would not be able to fly. So I've confirmed, whoa, there we go, Nelly. I've confirmed that the pattern will work with the wind conditions that we are expecting. And you can see it's basically a creeping line. Many orthomosaics are. I make sure to download the map and pattern to my tablet to be used offline. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to have Wi-Fi out there. Okay, now I've given you the quick tour, but this is a program that you'll want to play with when the time comes for sure. It's actually really, really powerful tool. The key is, of course, making sure that you can do these missions here on your computer at home. Download them to your tablet before you leave, or when while you're at incident command, or before you're out in the field, so that you can fly the mission without the need of Wi-Fi. Another one that I use, but it can't be used with the Skydio yet, is Lychee. It works a bit different. Lychee actually allows you to create your own pattern, set the height of the UAS, and the direction of the camera. So here's an example of a programmed flight in Sunset Bay, Lake Huron, at the base of the thumb. So we're going to start, where's our one? So we start here and lift off, and we're going to go to 125 feet. And you can see the direction of our camera, right? We're going to, and then we're going to take a, we're going to go to 2. We're going to go to 3. So right now we've asked for it to be a video, and then we're going to take a picture. So even though we're taking a video as we go along, when we get to 2, we're actually going to ask it to stop, turn around, take a picture in this direction, come back, and then maintain where it was, continue the video. And you can actually make it do this. So you create your own pattern and where you want to take your picture, what you want to take your picture of. And so this gives me an entire 180 perspective of the bay.
Matt, indicate something to you.
Yes.
On the Skydio, they just added that kind of setup.
Yes,
It's
we
been
can do
added
that
to
now.
it. You
Yeah,
can
we
do that
use-
now.
Yeah, we can use the Enterprise and do that in the Skydio. And again, this is something that can be used. Lychee can be used with any DJI product. We just couldn't use it. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's actually my next paragraph. So your timing on that was perfect. The thing is again, making sure that we have it on the tablet. We downloaded it so that it can be used for offline use, because we're not going to have that. We may not have that Wi-Fi out in the field. So all the pre-planning is done. We've all arrived at mission base, and before we head out and put the sUAS in the air, I have called you over for a crew briefing. Crew briefings are important. It makes sure that everyone is on the same page and has the same objectives. By using the checklist here, you won't miss anything. Before I brief the crew, I always make notes on my page because it makes it go smoother and I'm less likely to forget anything. Not everything on the list will be required at every briefing. It's up to the mission pilot to ensure that the relevant information is passed on. Okay. So, you're my crew. I have 3 major technicians, but the rest of you are also going to be part of my crew. So, let's begin. Okay, glad to see everyone. The time is 1110 hours by my watch. We're pretty much alone out here, and when I call your name, please let me know you're here. Captain Crunch. Cadet Major Stein. That's Stein, sir. Oh, Lieutenant Do-Right. Glad to see you. I chose you to be part of the team because you always get your man. Okay, so we're going to be looking for Sally's teddy bear. It was last seen in the clearing just over those trees. There's a strong indication it's still in there. The trees are only about 30 feet up, so I'm going to fly low today, probably about 50 feet, given the smaller size of the target. I plan on doing a couple of searches, one to create an ortho of the area to study afterwards, and I'm going to do a creeping line search at a slower pace and record it. With any luck, we'll spot it right away, and we'll probably be done all the photography in about an hour. Our incident commander is Colonel Bomer, and he's in the trailer getting a ground team here for when we find our lost furry friend. He's brought Lieutenant Hanby with him to man the comms. We've been given a radio, and we've tested for cell phone signal. We'll be on channel R67 Alpha. Lieutenant Do-Right, I'm going to ask you to monitor the radio. Captain Crunch, you will act as flight observer. Let me know if you lose sight of the sUAS, please. Captain Major Steen. That's fine, sir. I'm going to ask you to act as scanner for me. It's a gorgeous day, nice, sunny, bright, clear skies, no wind. Can't ask for anything better. There's no NOTAMs, and we're clear in Gulf airspace today. Everyone has their safety bets on? Great. I found a couple of rabbit and fox holes in the ground. Careful where you walk. If you see poison ivy, let everyone know and make sure we stay away from it. The batteries are going to be used in the order that they are in the case, so we shouldn't have any mix-ups. If we spot the teddy bear, we're authorized to enter the ground clearing ourselves and retrieve it, if ground crew hasn't arrived by then. Are there any questions? How about you guys? Any questions on that briefing? Was it pretty complete?
Yes,
You understand what we're doing?
yes.
Awesome. That's pretty much how you give a briefing. All right. So that would end the planning of the mission. And our next step would be to start flying. We would then go to the checklist for the pre-flight and pre-takeoff routines, then the safety tests. Those are lessons for another night, though. Any questions? Okay, the link is on screen for those watching the video. And I'm going to put that in the chat in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail here. Where's my chat? Uh-oh. Where are my meeting controls? There we are. Thank you. My goodness. All right. So there it is. And that's it for tonight's session.